My wife cheated on me with her boss, then manipulated me into signing over half our estate 350, zero worth of property, just before she sued me for full custody and control of everything. And I just found out she's been secretly planning to sell our family home behind my back. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a complete nightmare. But here I am, and honestly, the whole thing feels like it's straight out of a bad soap opera. The craziest part, I almost didn't see it coming. It all started with little things, things I brushed off at first, but looking back, they were the cracks in the facade. Lisa was always the charming one, the kind of woman who could talk her way out of anything. She's got that bitchy edge when she doesn't get her way, but she's also slick and convincing enough that you'd never suspect she's manipulative. We'd been married for about 8 years, and honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. We had a decent life, a nice house, a couple of kids, nothing fancy but comfortable. I worked hard, she stayed home. With the kids, and everything seemed fine on the surface. But I started noticing small things that didn't add up. She'd be on her phone more than usual, hiding the screen when I walked into the room. She'd make excuses about work emails or late calls. She'd get defensive if I asked questions. Once, I found a strange number saved under a name I didn't recognize, and when I asked her about it, she snapped at me, saying I was paranoid. That should have been a red flag, but I dismissed it. I was too busy working, trying to keep everything afloat. Then came the real shocker. I was at work one day, processing some documents, when I decided to check her email, something I'd never done before. I don't know why I did it then, maybe a gut feeling, maybe just boredom. What I found was a string of messages between her and her boss, Mark. They weren't just professional emails. They were intimate, flirtatious, talking about how much they wanted to see each other, how they couldn't wait to be alone. The way she described him, it was obvious they were having sex. My stomach dropped. I read through hours of conversations, texts, emails, even some explicit photos. I couldn't believe it. Lisa, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with her boss. Mark was a smooth operator, the kind of guy who always knew the right thing to say to get what he wanted. And Lisa, she was just as much to blame. She lied, manipulated, and kept it all secret until I stumbled upon it. I felt betrayed, angry, and utterly stupid for not seeing it earlier. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I needed to gather my thoughts. My hands were trembling as I stared at the screen, trying to process how my wife, my partner, could do this to me. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, why she didn't love me enough to just tell me. Instead, she chose Mark over us, over the life we built. That betrayal didn't just hurt, it shattered whatever trust I had left in her. Over the next few days, I kept digging. I found out she'd been sneaking around for months. She'd been manipulating me into signing over half of our estate, about $350, $0 worth of property, without me realizing what I was doing. She made it look like I was signing documents for her own good, for the kids, for some future plans, but it was all part of her scheme. She knew she was planning to sell our family home behind my back. I found out because I caught her on her phone again, trying to set up a meeting with a realtor. It was like a punch in the gut. She'd already lined up the sale, and I was just a pawn in her game. I felt sick. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was a manipulative, lying bitch. I couldn't believe she'd turned my life into a chessboard for her own selfish needs. All the while, she was telling me she loved me, acting like everything was fine. That's what kills me the most, her lies, her betrayal, all wrapped up in a pretty package of false affection. It was like I'd been played for a fool. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. I started planning my revenge, not in a violent way, but in a way that would make her regret ever crossing me. I had to take back control of my life, my money, and my dignity. I wasn't going to be a victim of her schemes. Not anymore. The more I dug into her plans, the angrier I got. I started pulling the pieces together, her emails, the property papers, her conversations with the realtor. It was like watching a carefully scripted betrayal unfold right in front of me, and I realized I was sitting on a powder keg. My wife, Lisa, had been scheming behind my back for months, maybe even longer, and I was only just catching on. I remember the day I found out she was planning to sell the house. She'd been acting strangely for weeks, more irritable, secretive, snapping at me over small things. I'd caught her sneaking her phone into the bathroom, whispering into it. One night I decided to follow her. She slipped out after dinner, heading to some supposedly friend house, but I knew better. I followed her car, keeping my distance, until she pulled up at a small, run-down office building. That's when I saw her go inside with a folder in her hand. I stayed parked, heart pounding, and waited until she came out. When she did, she looked around nervously, then hurried to her car. I got a good look at her face. She was nervous, guilty, and that's when I knew she'd been lying all along. I confronted her that night. I told her I knew everything, the affair, the sale, the lies. Her face twisted into that typical bitchy sneer she always put on when she was angry or cornered. She spat at me, saying I was overreacting, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was just paranoid. She told me Mark was just a mentor, a friend, that I was imagining things, but I had all the proof. Screenshots, emails, the signed papers, even her own words. It was clear she'd been manipulating me into giving her what she wanted. Her reaction was classic. She everything then started spinning this web of lies. She said she was just trying to secure our future, that Mark was helping her with her career, and that I was just jealous. She called me insecure, accused me of not trusting her, and told me I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle a little success. It made me sick listening to her spin those lies. She's always been good at twisting things around, making herself the victim, the misunderstood wife. But I saw through it all now. She was a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd been playing me for months. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible, and sadness because I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. It was a mess of emotions: disbelief, anger, heartbreak. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far, how I hadn't seen the signs earlier. The betrayal ran deep. She lied about her feelings, her loyalty, her entire life with me, and I was left standing there feeling like a fool for trusting her for so long. That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I started thinking about how to take back control, legally, financially, emotionally. I knew I had to act fast before she sold the house or took everything from me. I called a lawyer the next day, started gathering evidence, and began planning my next move. It wasn't just about fighting her for the house or the money. It was about reclaiming my dignity, standing up for myself after she tried to tear me down. I also realized I had to protect my kids from her schemes. She'd always been good at lying to them, making herself the hero, the victim, the one who's doing everything for their future. But I knew the truth now. She was a liar, a manipulator, and a cheat. And I was determined to make sure they saw that too, once I had everything sorted out. Honestly, I've never felt so betrayed and angry in my life. The woman I married turned out to be a narcissist who was willing to destroy everything for her own gain. I was starting to see her for who she really was: bitchy, selfish, and manipulative. The betrayal had cut deep, but I was done playing nice. I was going to fight back, and I was going to win. After I gathered enough evidence and talked to my lawyer, I started formulating a plan. I knew Lisa was smart, manipulative, and she'd try to spin things her way. She always did. But I had the proof now, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. My first move was to freeze our joint accounts and get a court order to prevent her from selling the house or any other property behind my back. I wasn't about to let her pull a fast one and walk away with everything, especially the house where our kids still lived. The day I took these steps I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief because I finally had some control, and anxiety because I knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. Lisa's the kind of woman who's bitchy, aggressive when cornered, and absolutely ruthless when she thinks she's losing. I could already see her playing dirty, lying, and trying to manipulate the situation. That's exactly what she did when I confronted her. She started crying, calling me all sorts of names: jealous, insecure, a terrible husband. Said I was ruining her life and that she'd never do anything to hurt me. That was her go-to line: deny, lie, manipulate. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her game. I knew she'd try to turn the kids against me, paint me as the bad guy, all to get sympathy and keep her grip on everything. That's when I decided I needed to be strategic. I reached out to a family counselor, not because I wanted to save the marriage, far from it, but because I wanted documentation of her behavior, her attitude, and her manipulation tactics. I needed proof to show the court how she was trying to manipulate the situation. Meanwhile, Lisa was losing her mind. She started throwing tantrums, yelling at me about how I was ruining her life, how I was a terrible father, how I was trying to take everything away from her. She even accused me of cheating, probably because she knew I had evidence of her affair. That made her even more desperate. She started threatening to sue me for custody and full control of everything, claiming I was unfit because I'd betrayed her. I laughed when I heard that. She's the one who lied, cheated, and schemed behind my back, and now she's trying to play victim. I knew I had to stay strong. I kept my emotions in check, even though inside I was boiling. Every time she yelled or lied, I just kept my cool. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, but I had the upper hand now. I had the evidence, the legal backing, and the clarity to see through her bullshit. I also started documenting everything: her lies, her threats, her attempts to sway the kids, her secret meetings. I knew that once it went to court, I'd have a solid case showing her true colors. One thing that struck me during all this was how much money she was willing to throw around to get what she wanted. She started hearing her own lawyers, trying to drag the process out, and even threatening to sell the house without my knowledge. She kept lying about her plans, claiming she just wanted to protect the kids' future, but I saw through her. It was all about money and control. She knew I was the one holding the purse strings, and she wanted to cut me out completely. I also found out she'd been secretly planning to sell the family home behind my back for months. She'd been talking with realtors, staging the house, and trying to get rid of all evidence that I was involved. When I uncovered that, it was the final straw. That house was more than just a property. It was my kids' home, our history. The thought of her selling it, without telling me, made my blood boil. So I made a decision. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play dirtier. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, especially her meetings with realtors and any new developments. I was determined to catch her red-handed if she tried to do something behind my back. I knew her bitchy, manipulative nature. She'd try to spin anything to her advantage, but I was prepared. I was going to expose her scheming, and I was going to make sure she paid for her lies. All of this was happening fast. The legal process, the manipulations, the confrontations. I felt like I was in a war, and honestly, I was exhausted but also more determined than ever. I wasn't going to let her ruin my life or our kids' lives for her own selfish gain. The betrayal had cut deep, but I was starting to see a way out. I'd fight for what was right, and I'd do whatever it took to come out on top. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, clandestine surveillance, and endless planning. I was relentless because I knew Lisa's game. She was a bitch when she didn't get her way, and she'd stop at nothing to keep her control. Her manipulations were obvious now, but she was also sneaky. She'd lie with a smile, fake tears, and spin stories meant to make me look like the bad guy. That's what she always did: lie, 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 then turn the situation around to make herself the victim. I remember the moment I found out she'd been secretly planning to sell the house behind my back. I was going through some emails late one night, trying to piece everything together, when I saw a message from her to a realtor. It was a detailed conversation about staging the house, setting a price, and even discussing how to hide the sale from me. She had already lined up a buyer, and she was trying to do it all without my knowledge. That's when I realized I'd been played like a fool for years. I confronted her the next day. I laid out all the evidence: screenshots, emails, her secret meetings. Her face twisted into that bitchy sneer she always threw on when she was cornered. She everything at first, then started spinning her usual web of lies. She said she was just trying to protect the family, that she was doing what was best for the kids, that she was only trying to secure their future, but I knew better. I saw her true face: selfish, manipulative, and ruthless. She snapped at me, calling me paranoid, insecure, and unfit. She claimed I was trying to ruin her life because I didn't trust her. She even accused me of cheating, probably because I'd found the emails with Mark. That was her favorite tactic: blame me, deflect, make herself look innocent. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I had the evidence and I was ready to fight. Meanwhile, she was throwing everything she had at me: lawyers, threats, emotional blackmail. She kept saying she'd sue for full custody and control of everything, including the house. She claimed I was an unfit father because I'd betrayed her. That made me furious. I knew her game. She'd manipulate the kids, turn them against me, and try to take everything she could. I had to protect them from her. I hired a lawyer who specialized in family law, and we started preparing for court. I knew the legal battle was going to be brutal, but I was determined to win. I also hired a private investigator to keep an eye on her, especially her meetings with realtors and any new developments. I wanted to catch her red-handed if she tried to pull something behind my back again. The biggest shock was realizing how much money Lisa was willing to spend to keep her control. She was pouring thousands into her legal fees, trying to drag everything out. She even threatened to sell the house without my consent, claiming it was her right as the primary owner. I knew I had to act fast before she finalized anything. If she sold the house, I'd lose any chance of getting it back and the kids would lose their home. I also started documenting her every move: her manipulative conversations, her threats, her lies. I kept a detailed journal and saved all emails and texts. I knew that once it all went to court, I'd need a solid case to show her true colors. I wasn't just fighting for the house or money anymore. I was fighting to protect my reputation and my relationship with my kids. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep her lies went. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. She'd been sneaking around, lying to her friends and pretending everything was fine. Meanwhile, she was plotting how to take everything from me. It was infuriating. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind to her bitchy, manipulative nature. In the meantime, she continued to lie and spin stories. She told the kids she was doing everything for their future, that I was just a jealous husband trying to ruin her. That's when I knew I had to be careful. I started talking to a counselor for the kids, trying to prepare them for what was coming. I didn't want her to brainwash them completely, but I also knew she'd try to manipulate them against me. I was exhausted, but also more resolved than ever. I refused to let her destroy what little stability we had left. I realized she was a master manipulator, but I was smarter now. I'd fight her every step of the way. I'd protect my kids, my property, and my dignity. Even if it meant a long, ugly legal battle, I was prepared. Because I knew, deep down, I was fighting for my life as much. As for my family's future, the court date was set, and I knew the real fight was about to begin. Lisa, true to form, was already throwing her bitchy attitude around, trying to intimidate everyone with her tears and false accusations. She showed up in a designer outfit, acting like she was the victim, the wronged wife. She claimed I was unfit, that I was jealous and controlling, and that I was trying to steal her happiness. It was classic Lisa: blame everyone else, spin her lies, and manipulate the situation to make herself look innocent. But I had the evidence. I had everything documented: her emails, her secret meetings, her plans to sell the house behind my back. My lawyer was sharp, and he laid out my case clearly. We showed how she'd been manipulating me into signing over half our estate, how she was planning to sell the family home without my knowledge, and how she'd been lying about her affair with Mark. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning in her head as she took in all the facts. Lisa's face was a mixture of anger and disbelief when the evidence was presented. She tried to deny everything, but the court had everything laid out. Her manipulative tactics didn't work this time. The judge saw through her bitchy, lying ways. In the end, I was awarded primary custody of the kids, with Lisa getting supervised visits, something I'd fought hard to make happen. The court also ordered her to halt any sale of the house and froze her assets until the case was settled. That day was a turning point. I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. I finally had some control back. But I also knew Lisa wouldn't give up easily. She was furious, and I could tell she was already planning her next move. She threw one last tantrum in the courtroom, screaming about how I was ruining her life, how she'd get everything back, and how I was just a jealous, insecure husband. It was pathetic but also typical of her bitchy, manipulative nature. After the court, I started the process of moving forward. I filed for divorce, and I made sure to include clauses that protected my assets and the kids' stability. I also started working on rebuilding my life, getting a new place, finding a better job, and making sure the kids knew I was there for them no matter what. It was a long road ahead, but I was determined to make it work. The aftermath was messy. Lisa didn't take the defeat well. She continued to try to manipulate the kids and spread lies about me. She accused me of cheating, of being a terrible father, of trying to steal her happiness. But I had the court's backing, and I had the truth. Slowly, I saw her schemes fall apart as the reality of her manipulations came to light. She was a bitch, plain and simple, a woman who'd lied, cheated, and schemed her way through our marriage. Looking back, I realize I learned a lot from this nightmare. I learned to trust my instincts, to document everything, and to stand up for myself. I also learned that some people, especially manipulative, bitchy women, will do anything to get what they want, no matter how much they hurt others. And most importantly, I learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. You just have to be willing to fight for it. Now, I'm rebuilding my life, focusing on my kids and myself. The pain of betrayal still lingers, but I'm stronger because of it. I hope anyone else going through something similar can see that no matter how bad it gets, there's always a way to turn things around. Trust your gut, gather your evidence, and don't let anyone manipulate or lie their way into your life. Because in the end, the truth always comes out and justice will follow. It's been a few months since the court ruling, and honestly, life feels different now. The house is still in my name, the kids are settling into a new routine, and I've finally started to breathe again. Lisa's attempts to manipulate and spin her lies have mostly fallen flat. The court saw through her bitchy, manipulative mask, and I got the justice I needed. But even with the legal battle behind me, the emotional scars linger. Trust is hard to rebuild after betrayal of that magnitude, and I still catch myself questioning whether she truly understood the damage she caused. Looking back, I realize how blind I was for so long. I kept making excuses, ignoring the signs, hoping she'd change or that things would get better. But Lisa was always the same, selfish, manipulative, and willing to lie her way out of anything. The affair, her scheming behind my back, the way she tried to control everything, those were her true colors. I see now that I should have trusted my instincts from the start, but I was too caught up in the life we built. That's what hurts the most, knowing I was played, used, and lied to for so long. The biggest lesson I've learned is to never ignore the red flags. If someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't wait for the betrayal to hit you like a freight train. Keep your eyes open, protect your assets, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. I also learned that you can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. Lisa's a bitchy, manipulative woman, and no matter how much I wanted to believe she had a good side, that side was buried deep under her lies and selfishness. As for the future, I'm focusing on my kids and myself. I've started therapy to work through the emotional fallout, and I've been rebuilding my confidence. I've also become more cautious about who I trust. I realize now that a lot of people can wear masks, pretending to be something they're not. But I'm stronger, smarter, and more aware. I won't let anyone manipulate me again. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this who's going through something similar: don't lose hope. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and broken when you discover your partner has betrayed you so deeply. But you're stronger than you think. Gather your evidence, stand your ground, and fight for your peace and your kids' well-being. Sometimes, the only way to reclaim your life is to walk away from the lies and manipulation and start fresh. In the end, I've come to accept that some people are just not worth your trust. Lisa's betrayal was a hard lesson, but it's also made me realize my own strength. I still have scars, but I also have a clear vision of what I want: honesty, respect, and a life free from manipulation. And I know now that I deserve that. No matter how bitchy, manipulative, or sneaky someone can be, the truth always finds a way to come out. And when it does, it's the only thing that truly matters.